So today we have with us one of the most dynamic and passionate leader in the industry and the great personality of hospitality, one of our most dear friend, Mr. Ravi Khubchandani, who is streaming live from Indonesia, Bali. So, talking about Mr. Ravi, he's having extensive and massive experience in hospitality industry, and previously worked as general manager in Novotel Airport, Hyderabad, and now he is the general manager in Novotel Bali International Airport. So, Mr. Ravi, welcome you to this amazing show. Thank you so much for joining with us today and to share your experience and your strategies, your advice, your guidance, and your insights. So, our students and we are all privileged to have you today this morning with us. And over to you, a few words, Mr. Ravi.
Thank you, Mr. Honesty. It's wonderful to catch up with you. I mean, the last we met up in person was more than a few months ago, and good morning to everyone in India. And it's really nice to be here, having an opportunity to interact with you and your ever so vibrant students. I do recall my interactions with them on various platforms before, and this time around for the first time on Zoom. Yeah, it's wonderful to be here with you and all the students.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Mr. Ravi, we have a few questions, where the students want to know from you and looking forward to hear from you. But before that, you had a massive and extensive and huge experience in the hospital industry. And mostly in Accor hotels. So many of your students want to start their journey in Accor hotels, and in it's Novotel, it's IBs, whatever it's Mercure. So we want to hear your success stories, and we want to hear your journey. So the students would take you, but of course, you are the true inspiration for many people. So please, if you can share your experience, your journey towards your hospital. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Honesty. I think if I have to go back to when it all started, it was many moons ago when I started working with, of course, a core in New Zealand. That's where the journey really started for me. And of course, being the kind of country that it is, you can actually work full time, work part time, study full time. You can do a lot of things, which I think in India we are still sort of evolving to that level slowly. So I was very fortunate to be able to start working whilst I was studying, and had a great journey. Started working as a night auditor with one of the properties in Wellington, New Zealand, and then after that, my role got shared between multiple properties, so got exposed to a Novotel, a Mercure, and an Ibis in the very city. And then after that, worked in Wellington for a few years, and afterwards I moved with Accor to Auckland, again in New Zealand. Worked as a second in command of a small boutique property. So I think what really what I was really fortunate with was working with different properties with different kind of business nuances, with different kind of locations, and then after that, of course, I took an early sabbatical. I wanted to be back with my folks for a bit, and then after that, when I headed back to New Zealand, I worked in Rotorua, which is a resort location. Worked with Glampton Developments, Sodima Hotels. Worked with them for quite some years, with my last assignment in New Zealand being as an EAM for their flagship property in Auckland. And then, Accor was kind enough to have me back into the family, and I wanted to basically get exposed to Asia, to Southeast Asia or South Asia, and then an opportunity was thankfully created for me in Pune. So that was my first assignment as in a lead capacity for a hotel, and from there we had a great run there. And then after that, I managed the Ibis in Gurgaon for a few years. Again, another challenging opportunity with the market dynamics not being very favorable, but we were fortunate. With a great team, we did some we had some phenomenal achievements to accredit. And then after that, Hyderabad, that's where we met. It's again a very different property. It's an airport hotel, but unlike any other airport hotel, it was more of a MICE location, and We used to do big wedding events, big pharma events, and of course, being right at the airport, we had a fair amount of public demand, public business demand. Very, very different operation. And now what I'm basically doing here in Bali at Novotel Bali Airport, this is a true blue airport operation. We have to keep a close eye on the dynamics of aviation business, and then align ourselves to the requirements thereof. So yeah, as I said, it's been an amazing journey in the sense of opportunities that I've had, and varied experiences.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for sharing your experience with us. Mr. Ravi, you worked in Wellington, you worked in Pune, you worked in Hyderabad. Now you're working in a Bali. So how you differ the hospitality industry in the places? Because Hyderabad is a different zone and Bali is a different zone. So how do you differ, Indian hospitality industry and Indonesian hospitality industry? Please few words. Over to you, Mr. Ravi.
Uh, Service is, of course, at the heart of hospitality, regardless of where we are. And the aspect and nuances of service definitely change, not just with region, but with the kind of business model that you're operating in. I mean, the way I would operate in a resort hotel would be very different to how I would operate in a MICE hotel, to how I would operate in, a leisure destination. And funnily enough, I am in a resort destination, but I'm in an airport hotel in a resort destination, which is very different to any other, resort or leisure operation in my city, for that matter. So I think service remains to be at the heart of hospitality, regardless of where we are. The expectations and the nuances, they have slight, uh, you know, uh, changes depending upon, the expectation of a wedding client would definitely be very different to somebody who's traveling and staying with you just for a night for corporate visit. So, and those are, and I think the borders are really fading. The global borders are really fading, and the expectations are becoming more global in nature. I really don't find, there are some differences, of course, that goes without saying, but that's more so to do with the nature of travel. Because the travelers otherwise are becoming more and more global in terms of their expectations, in terms of what hotels are really offering. And with the advent of, with the introduction of global operators, for example, if it's about a core or any other large global conglomerate operating in various global locations, I think there is, by that virtue as well, service levels are becoming quite standard and similar across the globe.
Thank you so much. Uh, Quickly, one more question, Mr. Ravi. Regarding this current scenario, how does COVID-19, it's a worst hit to the entire hospitality industry, not only hospitality industry, entire world. So, how you are handling this situation as a leader of the property, and also what are the strategies would be implemented to overcome this situation? Over to you, sir.
I think what we are all witnessing is absolutely unprecedented. Nobody could have thought of something like this at the end of 2019 or beginning of 2020. This is, and as I said, it's absolutely unprecedented. And nothing that you would or could do would be absolutely perfect in all aspects. And the situation also evolving every couple of weeks, if not days. So to be able to combat the situation, or to be able to just sail through with it, I think it is extremely important to be agile, to be very adaptive. What we are doing, and I would not say it would be much different from what most others would be doing for that matter, but it's just about how effectively and how fast do you do it. And that would entail things like containing, primarily it's about containing your expenses, austerity modes. One has to be introducing austerity measures, absolutely immediately. And that's exactly something that we've done. Containing all possible expenses, just to ensure that the cash flows are intact, and they are, you can sustain your business for the next few months, hopefully. And hopefully after that, the business dynamics would evolve for better. Apart from that, the most important thing from an operational perspective that we are doing is ensuring very stringent and high levels of hygiene, because the safety of our teams, our guests, I mean, that's absolutely paramount. That is nothing more important for us than that. And that's something that we've been investing a lot of our energy, a lot of our focus, and even in monetary terms, a lot of funds are still being dedicated to something that, as I said, remains absolutely paramount for us. And I think beyond that, it's also about being prepared to spring back, to bounce back when the situation kind of settles down a bit, and we are keeping ourselves ready for that as well. That we should not get to a point where we become extremely dormant. We are keeping ourselves prepared to capitalize on any opportunities that may come our way.
Yes, thank you so much. Definitely, we will overcome this situation, as you rightly said. And one more question: the Indonesian tourism heavily depend on the Chinese tourism. So, and Indonesia is one of the most, very important tourism sector. So now, and also they have a lot of foreigners used to visit Indonesia and Bali. So how this COVID-19 affected the tourism industry heavily, and what impact it created to the hospitality industry? Over to you, sir.
Uh, I think we are all extremely impacted. I think regardless of which part of the world we are in, we've all been extremely impacted by COVID. Some more than others. Perhaps Indonesia, as you rightly said, depends extensively on tourism, on the travel and tourism trade. We had huge international traffic, specifically coming in from countries like China, Australia, Malaysia, Singapore, Japan, and of course these have been impacted. Give or take 8% of the GDP was getting contributed from the travel and tourism trade, and all that has been hugely impacted. Apart, and along with that, everything else has also been equally impacted. So, you know, for us, as I said, with pretty much something that everybody else across the globe is also doing, we're just trying to introduce strong austerity and hygiene measures. That's the best thing that we can do at this stage, and keeping the system well protected and keeping it ready to sort of bounce back as and when the time is right.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Mr. Ravi. Rightly said. Coming away from the COVID-19, uh, being a general manager, uh, our students are getting ready for the campus placements and many things. So, as a general manager, when you go for recruiting students, whether it is management training or NGL program, what one quality you would expect from the student who would be appearing for this program? Over to you, sir.
I think it would be slightly difficult to sort of pin down on just one single quality that we would be looking for. I mean, we look for a mixed bag of traits, of personality traits and attributes when we are looking at recruiting somebody. And of course, some of them become quite specific to job roles. But I think in the current times, with the way things are, and normally also one would look at it, but with what we have seen in the recent past, with the change in business dynamics globally, what would be absolutely important, and a personality trait, or a, or a or not really a skill bit, but more so a personality characteristic that we'll be looking for, is the ability to adapt and being agile. I think these would be absolutely crucial, because the dynamics are changing at a very business dynamics are changing at a very fast pace. So somebody who's extremely agile and adaptive would be able to evolve and move faster with all these changes, and that is something that we'd be really looking for in people.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Mr. Ravi. And I have one more question. Um, all the students, joining hotel management to become in a better position, to become a general manager or executive chef or front office manager. So, our pan India students watching your interview in the live, FB live. So you moved from front office and you moved to general manager. So what advice you would give our students if they want to become a general manager like you, or if they want to become a head of the department, and what are the attributes they should have? Over to you, sir.
I think diligence and agility would be absolutely important. There's no shortcut to having achievements and accolades to your credit. There is absolutely no shortcut to that. One has to be extremely diligent, extremely adaptive, and as I said, in the current scenario and moving forward, perhaps being extremely agile. And you just need to know as to what's happening around you. Keep working hard. I think things are not as difficult as they seem at the face of it.
Thank you so much. And one more question from the student who is studying in second year. Uh, what the constantly changing the expectations of the customers, how we can meet the customers' demand as a student. Constantly, how I can prepare myself to meet the customer demand, the guest demand. Over to you, sir.
Um, I think it depends exactly as to what the customer's demands are. One has to be understanding of a customer's requirement, and I think now the world is evolving to the next level of being anticipative. Without the guest verbalizing, you have to find ways to anticipate as to what the requirements are. And to be able to do that, you just have to engage in extensive interactions with your customers, with your guests, with your sub agents, and so on and so forth. So um, just keeping your finger on the pulse of the requirements of the customers, that's going to be step one. And once you're able to either understand or anticipate the requirements, then you have to post that, you have to uh, structure things around it operationally.
Thank you so much, Mr. Ravi. And we have come to an end of this session, not making much time. So, last two questions, final questions. Um, what is the points which make the difference for low budget yet luxury hotels or resorts in Indonesia than Western countries hotels which are providing almost same range of facilities and quality, but yet very costly? So, how do you seeing this? How do you analyze this in, as a general
I,
manager point of
just to
view?
get the question right, would the question mean that for similar services, there is possibly a higher charge in some countries than possibly Indonesia, some other
Yes,
parts of the world? Is that what the question is?
yes, yes.
Uh, it probably won't be a totally, I don't think it would be totally appropriate or relevant to sort of compare the average rates of one country with another. I think, I mean, for example, let alone countries, even within the same country, you would have different price points or different average rates between different cities. If you go to a tier one city, or if you go to, a tier three city, the price disparity would be absolutely massive. Uh, so that, and also location, that sort of brings me back to the point of location. So depending on where you're located, that will have a huge impact on the price point. I mean, if you are located, I think, if you just have to compare, say for example, Hyderabad, and if you have to compare it with Tokyo, you will definitely get a lot more bang for your buck in Hyderabad than you would get in Tokyo. So it depends on a lot of factors. Pricing depends on a lot of factors. When I say location, it means the cost of real estate would be hugely impacted on where you are, and that eventually will get passed on to the end user. But beyond that, there are other things. Living standards. The cost of living. If the cost of living is much higher in any given country or city, for that matter, that will reflect in the payroll and benefits of that region, which will then eventually get relayed to the end user. Uh, Taxation structures. Licensing. Different countries have different licensing norms, and some are more expensive than others. So it won't really be an apple to apple comparison if we have to compare product A versus the same product in another part of the world. So there are a lot of things that go into the pricing dynamics.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Mr. Ravi. And coming to final question of the day of the session, question from the student: uh, what are the different sectors other than hotels? The students can look after performing or jobs after completing of their hotel management course. Over to you, sir.
Um, Personally, I'll be absolutely biased towards hotels, but that's me speaking. I think there are a lot of from an opportunity perspective for hotel graduates, and I mean it feels actually absolutely nostalgic, because these were the questions that we had in our mind when we were graduating many moons ago. So I mean, I can totally see as to where the anxiety is coming from. More so perhaps from the students who would be about to culminate their studies and enter into the work world. Uh, but from an opportunity perspective, it's not just there are a lot of ancillary industries that work in close partnership with hotels, or the larger as a larger space of hospitality. You've got event managers, wedding planners. We've got platforms that create technology for hotels and associated fields. You've got travel operators, working with online travel agents for that matter, and there are various platforms, that actually work in close association or in tandem with hotels from a hospitality perspective, and those opportunities are all available for this generation of hoteliers. Beyond that, I think this is looking at the larger hospitality vertical, but beyond that also, I think any service industry really values the skill sets and the personality attributes that a hospitality or a hotel professional would bring along, both by the virtue of what they learn in colleges, like an esteemed like the esteemed college that you represent yourself, and even otherwise, when they get exposed to the industry, there are a few personality characteristics or attributes that they sort of pick up from those uh, those opportunities, and they are extremely valued by all service industries.
Thank you so much, Mr. Ravi. Finally, a question from my side. One last question. I will
That
take
will
this
be a
time.
very tough one, I'm sure.
Not for sure. So we have 6,000 students passing out every year from IIHM, and you have great experience, more than 25 years in the industry. I think you might have, faced a lot of challenges, and you might have overcome all those challenges. So I want you to share how you overcome all those challenges, or few, that would help our students to, get more confident and more motivation. Over to you, sir.
No, I must thank you first for reminding me of my strands of gray with the years of experience behind me. Uh, um, I think challenges are an integral part of all industries and all opportunities, I would say. You would definitely face a lot of challenges in the sense of currently what we are facing is probably the biggest challenge that any one of us has ever faced. So if we can face this, I'm sure that we are ready for anything else that lies ahead, or anything else that I would have experienced in the past, for that matter. But challenges would of course be extremely different, and they would be ever changing and ever evolving depending upon where you are, what you're doing. The industry is quite demanding, mentally and physically both, and that is something that we need to embrace as hoteliers. We need to be mentally prepared for that, and this is what we are signing up for. um, I think that's step one for me. I believe that that's step one, that we need to be mentally prepared as to what we're getting into to start with. And once we are mentally prepared for that, and as I said, even physically prepared for that, then things start seeming much easier than otherwise. The challenges would be in the form of business perhaps not being at its peak, uh, you know, uh, having to deal with authorities at times, having to deal with uh, you know uh, in some cases, possibly things like unions, things like uh, policy changes. When we've all gone through the policy changes that we had a few years back from a taxation perspective and so on and so forth, and that we really had to adapt quickly. I don't think that anything damaged the industry, so to speak, but I think they just push us to think fast, to be agile, as I said before, and to adapt as quickly as we possibly can. And that is what it will be all about moving forward as well, that you need to be able to quickly think on your feet, take quick decisions, and execute them with the support of your teams.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for so much insights and knowledge you have shared with us. And thank you so much for sharing your experience and taking your time in this busy schedule during this pandemic time, and for interacting with our students and sharing your knowledge. Mr. Ravi, you are one of the best friend of us, and thank you for accepting our this invitation, and you joined. You say you never said no to us, and immediately you said yes, and you are ready to rock. So thank you so much. And we have many students who are watching this in FB Live, and they must have learned, the how the new leadership quality. So thank you for streaming live from Bali. Take care and stay safe. And thank you so much once again. We will be in we'll be in touch, and definitely. And thank you all the students and my team, and thank you for joining with us today. This pleasant morning, of course, afternoon in Bali. It's a pleasant morning. Once again, we'll meet you in another hospitality talk show. Supriya, you want to share something? You want to say? You want to say hi to Mr. Ravi?
Hi, Ravi. It's fantastic to meet you, sir. It's been long that we couldn't connect much, but thank you so much for joining us today and share your views. I couldn't resist myself to join the meeting because I really wanted to hear from you. But it's all our pleasure to have you in the
I could see
platform.
you sitting there, and I was just about to say hello to you. I mean, lovely to see your smiling face again after long, and it's always wonderful and always a pleasure to see you.
Same here, same here. Thank you so much for joining us today, sir.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Ernesti. Thank you, Supriya. Thank you for having me. I think it's always a pleasure interacting with you. And as I said, you're ever so vibrant students. I wish everyone the best of health, more important than anything else right now. And for the students, an amazing career ahead. And we should of course stay in touch. All the very best to everyone.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much. And thank you, everyone. We'll meet you in next hospitality talk show. Signing off from IIHM Career Studio, Hyderabad. Thank you all. Thank you, sir. Bye. Take care.
IIHM. For a great hospitality career, call 98310 50,000.